1936 we were ruled by the Syndicalist Trade Union Council, only to get saved by the British Army under Percy Hobart a year later. Since then the Commonwealth of Britain has been formed, inspired by Cromwell, with the army as the sole ruler with unbreakable control. The year is now 1942 and we've been at war with the traitorous Windsors and their Entente allies for over 2 years, pushing them out of Europe and Africa. This leaves crossing the Atlantic as the last, most major battle left. You might remember that the plan for this was to declare war on the German Empire and the Reichspakt, with a quite simple reasoning. We don't have the naval capacity to destroy the combined American and Canadian fleets, but if we steal the German Kaiserliche Marine, the balance of power would shift. Fighting against this global power who crushed the French syndicalists in weeks won't be easy, however, and we've had to prepare thoroughly. We've deployed a total of 4 million men on the field, the largest army in the world, something which is only possible thanks to our militarized society. We've also deployed more tank divisions for a total of 24, and while our air force is not as large as the German, hopefully our fighters are superior to theirs. To not risk the Germans scuttling their fleet, we've also infiltrated their army and started setting up a collaboration government. Because surely there are parts of the German High Command who seek the same military government as we have, as opposed to their democratic monarchism. But before the war was declared, a sad day arrived. Percy Hobart announced his retirement after some 5 years in power. He saved us from syndicalism and the traitorous monarchy, leaving our island in an upward trajectory compared to that of the Industrial Revolution. But fret not his departure, cause in his place Thomas Edward Lawrence will become the new Lord Protector. And under him we will march to Berlin and sail to Ottawa. He gave us our first victory in Croatia, crossed the Sahara Desert to defeat the French, and became a national hero in Brazil by destroying the Argentinians. So there is nothing stopping us from our upcoming victories. So on the 14th of May we declared war on the German Empire and its allies. On the main front in southern France, the air war began with a boom as we immediately started shattering their air force. While we wait for the skies to clear, we looked to Africa. In Egypt we used local forces to force out the German Suez garrison. On the complete opposite side of the continent our infantry advanced into Morocco. Despite German mechanized supporting its defenses, we would arrive to Marrakesh and capture much of its mountainous provinces. However, as we arrived to Casablanca, our supply lines drew thin and the front would turn to a stalemate. We had a little better chance over in West Africa, where we captured half the colony by exploiting gaps in its lines and encircling its forces. But soon the offensive here too would halt, leaving our African offensives with no more steam left. So it's only good that we finally feel ready over in Europe, having shot down over 2,000 Luftwaffe planes in the last month. Initiating the first offensive with a third of our tank force from Bordeaux, the small Reichspakt frontline forces were quickly destroyed, leaving the rest of the front completely open. With the speed of our tanks, we soon crossed the Loire River, arriving to Brittany. This newly independent German puppet probably never expected that we would arrive this far, and so the whole nation was quickly secured. Leaving no time for the enemy to rest, we sent in 8 more tank divisions and launched an offensive to Paris, at the same time as the Eastern European defensive pact smelled blood and declared war on the Reichspakt. Defeating the German panzers, the road to Paris was opened up. With the capital captured only hours later, our tank force commander, Raymond Briggs, decided to simply continue driving further north, arriving to the Benelux by defeating both Wallonia and Flanders, while also reaching the German border. With our surprising superiority in the conflict, we will quickly defeat the French, then initiate the final grand offensive into Germany, ignoring all its allies. Because if we don't, the nation could get captured by the Eastern Socialists instead. We ended the French resistance by turning south from Paris into Champagne and Burgundy, enveloping the last Reichspakt forces in the nation as we arrived to Lyon. Cleaning them up, we've now caused over 500,000 casualties to the Germans alone, and with the final offensive ready, this will surely jump even higher until we win the war. It's an end of an era, the German Reich has fallen and its global empire collapsed. Our casus belli has also been completed, with the whole German navy seized and consolidated into the Commonwealth Navy. The collaboration government was also a great success, with the DVLP now in control of the German Union and similar governments established in France, Belgium and the Netherlands. But the war is far from over. All over Europe and Africa, remnants of the Reichspakt and its former allies remain to be defeated and consolidated into the Commonwealth. Now the undisputed strongest faction on the globe. We've already started the cleanup efforts in Europe by defeating the Swiss, and we will continue here while sending some tanks to Africa so we can restart its offensives later. Squished between us and the Ukrainian forces, Poland and Lithuania, who are separated not united as before, were divided between us two. We saw even better speed in Italy, where a third of our tank force blitzed through its weak defenses, completely cut off the Ukrainian faction and drove southwards towards Rome. And so, for the second time in this decade, Italy would fall to foreign forces. Having somehow found ourselves at war with the Ottomans, we helped our Balkan allies to deal with the extremely sick man of Europe, having lost the war to the Egyptians we destroyed ages ago. Of course, it was a tiny bit difficult to defeat them, but that was mostly due to the terrain, and so the Megali idea has been achieved and Bulgarian borders restored. This leaves only Finland and Ireland left in Europe, both of which we have to naval invade. This ties greatly into our slow preparation for the crossing of the Atlantic. We already have the naval forces, now we just need the land forces and the training. Back home we have developed an elite marine division with a whole army of them in training. Their first objective will be in Finland, but while we wait for their deployment we can look to Africa. In Morocco, with no more German forces holding their lines, we had a far easier time than before, capturing their last big cities. Casablanca would fall the last, after being encircled on all sides. Then began the much larger battle, that for Mittelafrika, the leader of the Reichspakt remnants. Despite the horrible supply in the region, we have sent 4 tank divisions, and this quickly turned out to be the right call. Running on Sudanese oil, we shattered the defensive lines in Uganda and drove straight to Kampala, securing the supply hub of the city. This is how the battle continued, jumping from supply hub to supply hub. The next one would be Nairobi, then Mombasa, which led to the fall of the first German African colony. With the dominoes continuing, we arrived to the capital of German Mittelafrika, a big step towards victory, but still only a quarter of the way there. With the Marines back home soon deployed, we want to leave our generals in Africa with the best shot at victory, so we opened up a second axis of attack. Having sent tanks to West Africa too, we started running wild in Nigeria, encircling whole German armies and driving to their populated cities. It wasn't pretty, but eventually we arrived to Lagos, ending our second colonial government, which also led to the fall of the third, as German West Africa was now completely encircled. Meanwhile, our armies had continued marching into Mittelafrika, putting them at a strong 54% towards capitulation. Uniting the whole front into one 119 division army, we set off on a full frontal assault. So back to Europe, our marines have been deployed and the German fleet trained. With the invasion of Finland also planned, we went ahead and launched it. Despite this being their first rodeo, it was an immediate success as we landed safely in both Turku and Helsinki. The Finns have one of the most determined armies in the world, however, so they wouldn't crumble for this only. We had to march along the Baltic Sea, first to the north to Vasa, then to the east to Viipuri. The more our lines were outstretched, the harder it became to advance, but by concentrating our forces we continued gaining breakthroughs until reaching Oulu and the Finnish government capitulated. With the Baltic Sea completely under our control, we sent our untrained fleets there to train, while sending those already ready to the Mediterranean Sea for the final clearance of the region. Immediately upon arrival, we sunk the Australian, French and American fleets, stuck after we closed the Gibraltar Straits. What actually was difficult was to invade Malta. Being heavily fortified, they held off our first invasion despite shattering naval barrages. We had to try a second time with double the force to secure the last resistance in the Med. Isolated on the island was also the last part of the French fleet, now forced to retreat straight into our force so we could score our largest naval victory yet. As we sent our fleets back to Britain to prepare for the Irish invasion we've waited for in more than 5 years, we received unfortunate news from Africa. Our offensive has continued at a moderate pace, with us closing in on defeating Middle Africa, but with them desperate for anything to save them, they joined forces with the Entente, meaning the road to victory against them is longer. Back to Europe, we've secured naval superiority around the British Isles, and our marines stand ready to invade. But there is a third front we haven't discussed yet, which also plays an important role in our plans for the Atlantic. That is experimental weapons. Under Percy Hobart, we initiated a massive investment into research facilities, and they've already given us state-of-the-art weapons. In Birmingham and Cambridge, our nuclear scientists have explored nuclear reactors, which we've become the first in the world to build across our empire. They are looking into using these both for commercial activities, but also to construct nuclear fission bombs, a project already well underway. And to deliver the bomb across the Atlantic, we have two independent projects. The first is simply an intercontinental bomber able to strike the American where it hurts, while the second are unmanned ballistic missiles who already have the range to reach Iceland. While we obviously won't test any nuclear payloads on Ireland, we have built up the Isle of Man as a rocket launcher, and to loosen Irish defenses and help our researchers develop the tech further, we've started throwing over our rockets to the island. After sending over as many as possible, we finally launched the naval invasion. And the wait was worth it. Helped by some insiders, Belfast was the first port city to fall, followed by Cork, and lastly, with Dublin encircled, the capital defences fell and all of Ireland was returned under British control. This means that after such a long wait, we are ready to begin the Atlantic crossing. It will start at a small scale, splitting up our 48 marines, with half starting towards the north with Iceland and the other half going south to capture the Entente Islands off the coast of Africa. While preparing, we return to Africa, where the Germans are at 87% towards capitulation. The absolutely shambolic supply in the region turned fighting into a grind of trying to find gaps in their front to march into even less supplied areas. In an attempt to reinvigorate quicker offensives and stop Entente reinforcements, we enacted a blockade of the Gulf of Guinea. This gave us enough wiggle room to reuse our tanks to punch through to Gabon while encircling two important ports, at the same time as giving our allies the naval superiority to naval invade from behind up in the north. After destroying the encircled divisions, we regained our confidence and launched several expeditions deep into enemy territory. Causing them severe paranoia, we arrived to the port city of Buea, the last one under Entente control, leading to the capitulation of German Middle Africa. After taking our time till 1945 to clear up the last bits of resistance, we looked back to our Atlantic crossing. Unfortunately, the Icelandic invasion failed, with the Entente adapting to our marines. We will therefore have to go all out in the southern offensive, where possibilities are much greater. Successfully contesting the American fleet outside of Brazilian waters, we launched a naval invasion on all occupied Brazilian ports. The one closest to our front fell rapidly, but Belém stood its ground. It was only after we encircled the city and connected up with our main front that the Entente defenses retreated, leaving their 250,000 army to die in its jungles. Simultaneously, we entered the Caribbean Sea, using Puerto Rico as a springboard to our final destination before US soil, Cuba. With the island put under our control after 2 decisive battles, we've started building up its infrastructure. More ports, airfields and rocket sites. It will take some time, but we are in no real hurry either way, as we are waiting for our super weapons to develop further. While doing so, we extended our superiority in the Caribbean Sea by invading the neutral syndicalists of the West Indies Union. They really stood no chance, as we could easily reassert our presence in the Americas through the reintegration of most of their islands. It also opened up for an invasion of Venezuela with 2 large naval invasions, though worryingly we were never able to capitulate neither the Venezuelans nor the Colombians due to significant American support. Reaching the end of 1946, we are ready for the final battle. We have complete domination along the Florida coast, both in the sea and in the air. While our intercontinental bombers are still not developed, our second delivery option is. And with 29 nuclear bombs and 6 thermonuclear in stockpile, we are ready to deliver a mighty blow to the Entente. The plan is simple. We will strike New York and Toronto, shattering what remains of American war support, and hours later land on American soil in Florida. December 28th, the first rocket launched from Cuba to New York City. That same day, New York was reduced to rubble, with its population killed and infrastructure destroyed. A few days later, Toronto faced the same devastation, and with that we launched the last operation to end the House of Windsor and its allies. The United States of America has been destroyed. With 25 million military casualties for the Entente altogether, 1.6 million being Canadian, there isn't much standing in our way for complete victory. Leaving them with little time to realize how doomed they are, we drove our tanks into Canada straight towards their capital. Ottawa, Montreal and even Quebec were quickly captured, while Toronto followed a bit later due to the nuclear wasteland in the city. We had the same nuclear issue over in Vancouver, as we had nuked Seattle with our new intercontinental ballistic missiles. But despite the lack of supply, the western city was still eventually captured. There still remained some fighting spirits for the monarchists though, as they bought enough time for the king to flee the kingdom. But why should we care? Only days later the last Entente forces capitulated and we've won the war before 1949. We have fought tooth and nail in Europe, Africa, South America and lastly North America, all to finally reign supreme on the western half of the globe. We have completely re-established our African colonial holdings with a bunch of additional puppet regimes. Our Commonwealth stands almost alone in South America too, with Brazil at the helm, and lastly in the north, the United States of America has been shattered to ensure control of the region, while in Canada our military will take charge to purge it from monarchism. Altogether, our Commonwealth stands as by far the strongest alliance on the globe, and our superior weaponry and growing nuclear arsenal ensures that no one will ever hurt us again. Lastly, on the economic front, the end of the war and partial demobilization will only strengthen it. We are already the largest exporting nation on the globe, thanks to our allies, and with the significant investments into rebuilding Europe, Africa and America awaiting, we can only go up from here. So I hope you enjoyed this part 2, I certainly enjoyed playing this far into the game, and I'll see you in the next video.